Hello, BookTube. It's Wednesday, and that traditionally means New Comic Book Day, and also has spawned a BookTube tradition of its own, which is Epic Comic Book Wednesdays, a team up between myself and Michael K. Vaughan, where we talk about some comic, some new collection, some idea every Wednesday. And that venerable tradition, we've made many with Epic Comic Book Wednesday videos, but it took a knock, first of all, because of epic home construction here at Hyde Cottage. Massively intrusive home construction that took me out of the game for a while, including a Wednesday. And then slowly, as I started to get that freedom back, we were still out of whack because Michael K. Vaughan had visitors. A visiting Swiss delegation that apparently was imperiling his own video making schedule. And that sort of sees out the month of July and brings us into the month of August. And one of the features of Epic Comic Book Wednesday that I have come to rue is that since I hoard my way in on the whole thing, it was Michael's idea. He was doing it on his own channel. I just said, that seems like fun. Since I did that, he gets to pick what we talk about week by week. And he and I are both hosts of an absolutely deplorable BookTube event in August, Garb August, created by Criminali, designed to celebrate trash, designed to read stuff that's just no good. And being the team player and the trooper that he is, Michael K. Vaughan decided right away that if he was going to devote himself to trash in one event, he would devote himself to trash in another event. So he has decided, he made a video about it, that for our Epic Comic Book Wednesday duos during the month of August, we are going to read some of the worst comic books ever made. Which means that our schedule is sort of set for the month of August. That is unusual, and it's not only is it set, but it's all bad. It's all bad stuff. So we won't be going back to good comics until September. Nevertheless, I went to the comic shop today, which sort of stuns me. I had stopped for a long time. Once upon a time, I went to the comic shop every Wednesday. And it were different comic shops depending on my routine for 10 years. My routine took me to a post office box in Kenmore Square, Boston's Kenmore Square, around the corner from a Barnes & Noble attached to Boston University that I believe is still there, around the corner from a bunch of good restaurants, just down the block from Fenway Park, and one block away from a terrific independent, non-chain comic book store. And because I was going to that post office box several times a week to collect mail, for I thought to have it delivered to me, while I was doing that, that became a habit. That became very much a routine. And then that stopped. I broke that up. I stopped going to that Barnes & Noble. I started getting book mail delivered here. Instead of, shagging across the city in all weathers to get it and maybe get more than I can carry or whatnot, and maintain a post office box for no reason other than that. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Once those key linchpins of that routine broke apart, the routine broke apart. I wasn't going to go over there for no reason, or for only one reason. And then a routine reformed, depending on my foot traffic, depending on where I'm going to go. A routine reformed years later that involved a different area of town and a different comic shop, Newbury Comics on Newbury Street, the very first Newbury Comics. And then that routine broke apart because first, my two old dogs, the dogs that started off this channel, my pointer and my basset hound, got sick. They got old and sick and querulous. They reached a point where not only did they need my help to do everything, but it alarmed them when I wasn't around. It panicked them when I wasn't around. So I pretty much gave up all routines and just stuck with them. And even when they were gone, those routines were gone as well. And I had other things to do, and then COVID struck, and that just ruined everything. It just ruined everything. I started a sort of on and off getting comic books delivered from Vermont, from Mark Richardson and his wife up in Vermont, who have a Newbury Comics of their own, and would occasionally go, they go to it regularly, the regular customers there, and I would sometimes ask, if you're going there, would you mind picking this up or that up? And then I got an email from one of you saying, well, I understand what you're saying, but why don't you just make a new routine? Why don't you do that? And sort of a light bulb went on over my head, and I thought, well, why don't you do that? Why don't you do that? And so I did. And I think it's a real keeper. I think it's a real winner. And it gets me to Newbury Comics. And if I do this routine on Wednesdays, which is New Comic Book Day, then I'm at Newbury Comics every Wednesday. And if you've ever heard Mark in his videos talk about his own Newbury Comics, one thing that he mentions every time is something I got a chance to see in person when I was up there, which is that they had great customer service at his Newbury Comics. A terrific, personable, knowledgeable staff. And I guess that must be a hiring prerequisite at Newbury Comics. Either that or he and I are both lucky, because the same is true at my Newbury Comics. My guy, Adam, is fantastic at just being friendly, talking, recognizing that you've got what those of us long-term inhabitants of retail world realized was a good customer. Whatever amorphous chemistry goes into making that, you have to be regular. You have to be courteous. You have to spend money. You don't have to spend much money, but there are whole elements. And friends of mine and I, back in the retail bookstore days, used to try to figure out. We used to game out what makes a good customer. We know one when we see one, and we'll do anything for them. But what makes you one? And we've got people who come here regularly. They definitely aren't good customers. What makes the difference? I myself have always thought it's the personal element. Are you recognizing that the people who are dealing with you are individual people, that you should befriend them, in addition to demanding that they serve you, and vice versa? Are you recognizing that the customers that you're serving are also people, and you should befriend them, or are you resenting them because they take you away from your hookah, or your video games, or whatever? Certainly, myself and you, guaranteed you as well, have encountered retail help that is brutally rude. Just brutally rude. They view you as the enemy. They hate you because you're taking them away from, I guess, standing there doing nothing all day. I used to tell people at the retail bookstore, we'd occasionally get a new hire like that, and I would say to them, A, you're definitely not going to do that around me, or I would get you fired today. You're definitely not going to do that around me. If that's the way you are, we'll find you a job in receiving so you don't have to deal with people. But B, I also want to point out, you're making your own job worse by acting that way. It's only the customers that make this interesting. Otherwise, it's just boring. You're only hurting yourself to be an a-hole like that to nobody for no reason at all. The staff at my, now I can call it my Newbury Comics, wonderful. Wonderful kids. Just wonderful, wonderful people. So I went there today because they were having a sale. They were having a graphic novel sale. Buy one, get one, I think at half price, something like that. I don't think it was buy one, get one free. I think it was buy one, get one half price. And I had already contacted Adam to put something aside for me, which meant I was one graphic novel up. All I needed to do was find another one. So I did. I found two. Now, the one that he put aside for me was an Epic collection. This. Man-Wolf at Midnight. An Epic collection of Spider-Man comics from the 1970s with great Ross Andrew artwork. There is a character called the Jackal being smacked by a brand new character called the Punisher. This is the Punisher's first appearance. And you might be thinking, well, okay, that picture you just showed us is the Jackal. That's clearly him on the cover in front of Alexander Hamilton or whoever that is. So which of these other two is Man-Wolf? Since he's in the title, he must be on the cover. No, this is Marvel. This is a great John Romita Sr. cover, but it's not... that's Hammerhead. That's a gangster called Hammerhead, who had his head surgically re-altered to have a titanium plate up top there and shock absorbers in his spine so he can ram things at super speed and really hard. But for some reason, even though he went to the bother of doing that, he still wears gangster-style three-piece pinstripe suits when he's fighting people. And of course, the character jumping out of his way is Spider-Man, and the thing that Hammerhead is hitting is the Spider-Mobile, which makes its appearance likewise in these issues. I just turned to the introduction of a character called the Grizzly. There are quite a few characters that are introduced in these issues that didn't really catch on. But Ross Andrew is the artist throughout most of this thing. I think he's the artist through almost the whole of this issue. Yeah, he's the artist for almost the whole of this issue. he had a very puckish sense of humor. He didn't always get a chance to do it, but when he did, his panel designs were wonderful. And in one issue, when a character called the Grizzly, who's an ex-professional wrestler who gets a vaguely superpowered exoskeleton that dresses him up as a grizzly bear, he attacks the Daily Planet, or the Daily Bugle, the newspaper in the Marvel Universe. And he's smacking people around and making his way towards J. Jonah Jameson's office, the office of the publisher. And see there, he smacks Robbie Robertson, and J. Jonah Jameson hears the noise, and he's about to complain. He opens the door, sees the grizzly, and closes the door again. I love that little panel. That's just neat. Like he thinks the door is going to do any difference to a 10-foot-tall supervillain. But Man-Wolf is not on the cover. Man-Wolf is in the book. There is Man-Wolf. I was wrong. This artwork is by Gene Colan with inks by John Romita Sr. That is Man-Wolf, and he has, if I remember correctly, a terrific cover. At least one terrific cover. Yeah, there you go. That is a terrific cover. Why that isn't the cover of this volume, I don't know. Instead, you've got this, which is, a bad cover. A cover is supposed to raise stakes. It's supposed to be a dramatic moment captured. And this is a guy hitting a Jeep. The hero is not in danger, and there's somebody else in the frame that we don't know about who's not having any action, not having any effect, on the action. It's a badly composed cover. Why it's the cover of this issue, I have no idea. But I got this thing. It's there. This also would have been a great cover. There is a classic John Romita Sr. cover, Spider-Man facing some of his greatest foes, plus Morbius. But I got this because it's out new, and I have these issues, but I don't have them collected, and I love these issues. I love this time in Spider-Man's life, this time period, this weird time period where he is facing Ross Andru redesigned old villains. He's facing new villains. This, of course, continues the long stretch of time where Aunt May is romantically involved with Dr. Octopus. And none of this should work, but I think it really does. Most of it really does. So I got this, but because there was a sale, I had to grab another graphic novel. And I did. I grabbed the one and only Thor Epic Collection that I wanted, that I didn't already have. And that's this, War of the Gods. Len Wein does the writing here. That is a classic Jack Kirby cover. Jack Kirby came back to Marvel Comics to draw and write Captain America and the Black Panther. But in addition to that, he did a ton of covers for these characters that he helped to create 30 years before. It was just a joy to see him do Thor, Fantastic Four, Avengers covers again. That was just fantastic to see. And this collects a whole bunch of issues. It's almost all John Buscema artwork. There's the Grand Vizier. Look at that. Such a fantastic splash panel. Most of the issues in this run revolve around the fact that Odin, the king of the Norse gods, has gone missing yet again. He's always missing. I swear, you should pin his mittens to his winter coat so he doesn't lose them. He's missing again for most of these issues, and has to be found. But there are other highlights involved here too. The first 4 issues, for instance, involve who does this? Let me find. Len Wein and John Buscema with inks by Joe Sinnott. Very good inker for John Buscema. Len Wein decides to revive a dumb old Thor villain called the Tomorrow Man. Let me get his introduction here. Yes, the Tomorrow Man. I think he had one appearance before this, maybe one appearance in a team-up book too, Marvel 2-in-1 or team-up, something like that. A lame character, but Len Wein reinvents him here and gives him an epic 4-part storyline where Thor and his companions, plus Jane Foster, travel through time with the Tomorrow Man and his gigantic servitor, his gigantic robot assistant. Let me get you a good picture of the servitor, because he's fantastic. Len Wein, yeah, there we go. Len Wein manages to give him personality. Very good personality, very poignant story arc. It starts with that 4-part story, which I love. I wrote an enormous blog post on my old literary blog, Steve Reads, about that 4-parter. I doubt that it's findable. If it is, I'll try to link to it down below, but I doubt that it's findable. But at the end of this collection is something equally noteworthy, which is Thor Annual number 5. Let me see if, yeah, also with a Jack Kirby cover. The Jack Kirby cover highlights the fact that in this issue, Thor and Hercules fight. But boy, oh boy, more goes on in this issue than just that. This is the writer, who does this? Steve Englehart, telling the whole story of Norse mythology from in the Elder Edda and the Prose Edda, before he gets to the epic battle between Olympus and Asgard, between the Greek and Norse gods. Look at that panel. Just incredible. Just amazing. And that annual, boy, oh boy, talk about 50 cents well spent. That was incredible. I have mine, but I've read it so many times that it's held together with baling wire. So having it in an epic collection, I think I have it in hardcover as well from the old Marvel Masterworks series. But always good to have in a nice jazzy epic collection. So I got those 2 epic collections because the graphic novels were on sale. But while I was in the shop and enjoying myself and clearly welcomed by the staff, that's wonderful. I was the only old person there. I thought, well, you're in a comic shop on a Wednesday. Maybe you should go and look at the new comics, at the new release floppy single-issue comics. Maybe you should do that. I don't read Marvel or DC comics anymore. They are DC to some extent and Marvel 100%. Absolutely choked to the gills with blue checkmark, utterly racist, intolerant, sexist Twitter politics. Just choked with it. Marvel is entirely infested. It is entirely run from top to bottom by blue checkmark skulls, ideologues, who don't care about comics at all. They only care about making sure that you know, say it with me now, that your grandparents were horrible people. When that was only once in a while for Marvel, I used to pick and choose very carefully and hope that no male white character was being degraded and, Rogered up the rear this week or whatever, or that some new, utterly derivative but right pronoun knockoff character was being introduced and I was supposed to love them right away because they're high-fiving themselves. After a while, the picking and choosing from crap like that just became too arduous, so I didn't do it anymore. I didn't bother with new releases. Instead, I went with the reprint market that Marvel does very well, where I already know what I'm getting and I know that I like it. I know that sounds like a retreat, and it bothers me because it is one. But nevertheless, if Marvel as a company is going to decide that they hate their long-term fans, me, you don't get more long-term a fan than I am. If they're going to decide as a corporation that we really hate those fans, and whatever they like or whatever we suspect they like, we will do the opposite and destroy what they like. If Marvel as a company is going to do that and DC follows suit, then they're not going to get my money. But I thought I'd go up to the second floor in the despised, darkened back corner where the comics at Newbury Comics are kept and see. Now, in addition to the fact that I don't like the Twitter politics that have infested mainstream superhero comics, I'm also out of the game, right? I'm out of the loop. I don't know what's going on in those comics. So buying, for instance, an issue of Superman or Action Comics would have been useless. Absolutely useless. I wouldn't have known what was going on. It would have been a waste of money. But when I was looking at the Newbury Comics always sets aside a section of the floppy comic book section for new releases that week, for things that came out today. And when I was looking at those new releases, I saw a large number of first issues, large number of number ones. I remember when a number one issue from Marvel or DC was a huge deal. Now they happen all the time, and I figured with number ones, I can't be that far behind. Even in today's impoverished and depraved comic book writing industry, a writer will certainly know that in a first issue, they have to do a little bit of catching you up, right? They'll certainly know that. So I got 3 first issues, and I wanted to show them to you. I read them. They're all wonderful. So I lucked out this week. The first one is Janice Vell, Captain Marvel. The son of the original Captain Marvel is back. It's kind of a weird, kind of a crappy cover, but the writing is by Peter David, who's an old hand at comic books and an old hand at knockoff science fiction and whatnot, and knows how to tell a story. He is an old, tried and true plotter. So I figured it can't be that bad, you know. I don't know anything about this modern character. I know that Janice Marvel was not the son of the original Captain Marvel. He was sort of a genetic duplicate. But close enough. Close enough for government work. I also wanted to nitpick the cover because, of course, Captain Marvel, the blonde-haired Kree superhero who starred in Marvel Comics in the 1960s, is not the original Captain Marvel. The original Captain Marvel is my Captain Marvel, Billy Batson, who with one magic word transforms into Captain Marvel, the world's mightiest mortal. But, again, you make allowances where you can. Now, I read this thing, and I loved it. First thing I noticed is how incredible the artwork is. Just amazing. How incredible. Let me get you an example here. Here, a character wakes up in an alien zoo. Look at how beautiful that is. Just beautiful. And it goes on. I mean, it's the meditative parts, but also the action parts. Just amazing. Just amazing artwork. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. And it does introduce Janice Marvell, or whatever, the character that we've already seen on this channel. When Matthew at Maybury Book Club and I were reading Avengers Forever, or trying to make our way through Avengers Forever and read along, one of the core characters was Janice Marvel. This character. Who just was plucked. The character, the writer who wrote that series just thought, I'll use this character. Absolutely. We don't know much about him or his powers or anything like that. And this is the story of that character and Rick Jones, who's cropped up on Wednesday Comics quite often. He was the perennial sidekick for the Avengers and the Hulk and that blonde-haired Marvel, Captain Marvel. And he's in here too. He's a major character in here too. At one point, he meets and asks help from Tony Stark. And from the drawing, I can only assume that Tony Stark is coming to him fresh from the hospital where he has had his testicles removed. Good, I suppose. Might make wearing the Iron Man armor a little more comfortable. It's the only thing that I can use to explain why Tony Stark looks like that instead of acting like an adult. But the comic itself was really, really good. I might actually buy the second issue of this, especially since there's a big reveal at the end. A character is stunned. He looks up at a shadow looming over him and says, I thought you were dead. And then there's a big reveal in the final panel. Don't believe everything you hear. Dun, dun, dun! It's Thanos. A villain who will need no introduction to anyone thanks to the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. But when I got to that final panel, all I could think about was years and years and decades ago, there was a character for DC Comics called Ambush Bug. And he broke the fourth wall and talked directly to the reader. He was Deadpool. 35, 40 years before there was a Deadpool, he was Deadpool. And he was Keith Giffen, the artist and writer Keith Giffen. He was Keith Giffen's special joy. Keith Giffen took a lot of joy out of giving us Ambush Bug adventures. And Ambush Bug at one point had a miniseries of his own. Disastrous. But nevertheless, he had a miniseries of his own. And specifically to lampoon marketing gimmicks like this as a final panel. Specifically to lampoon that. As you can see, the thing that the writer, that Giffen was lampooning, is still alive and well, unironically. But it's specifically to lampoon that. At the end of each issue of the Ambush Bug miniseries, there would be a moment where Ambush Bug would go, "What?" And then the final panel would be Darkseid. At one point, Ambush Bug is in line at a fast food joint, and he gets to the register at the final panel of the second to last page, and he goes, "What?" And the final panel is Darkseid with a McDonald's cap on, handing him his burger and fries. It's just Keith Giffen's satire on the naked marketing gimmick of putting a major villain on the final panel reveal. Nice to know that it's still alive and well. It reminded me of Ambush Bug. Then another first issue that I got was Ant-Man. Ant-Man #1. This is by Al Ewing. The script is by Al Ewing, and the art is by Tom Riley. And when I saw this, I grabbed it. I don't have any patience with people who go to their new comic shop, go to the new issues, and just stand there reading. I see something, I make a snap decision based on the cover, the content, maybe the creators if I know them, and I buy it. I don't read it until I'm home. But the crusty old guy at the dry goods store a million years ago who had a rack of comic books used to tell kids, this isn't a library. Either buy it or put it back. And I he got a lot of razzing for that, but I agree completely. So I grabbed this, and I grabbed it assuming that it would be Paul Rudnick, that it would be Paul Rudd, that it would be Scott Lang, that it would be the Ant-Man of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the one we know, the happy loser in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it's not. I was pleasantly surprised. This is, in fact, Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne. It's a kind of a retro story. It takes place back when you went to movie theaters. It takes place back when everything Marvel was young. It's just adventures of Ant-Man and the Wasp. I didn't know that Marvel had this kind of inventiveness to do this, and it was really good. It's really, really good. It doesn't feel, it's retro, but it doesn't feel insulting. It doesn't feel condescending, which is usually how creators at Marvel especially do anything retro. They say, all right, here's the character that we know you like. Pew, 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 pew. We hate you, and we want it to be dripping off every page. When I saw that this was Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne, I immediately expected that, and it's not. This is instead well done. I may, again, buy the second issue of this. Kind of curious to know, though, how many first issues will be at the comic shop next week. Could I buy a first issue every day, or every week at the comic shop? I don't know. But then the third first issue that I got surprised me, and it blew me away, and there was only one issue left, and I grabbed it because this is Superman. And not just Superman, but this is Superman with a Steve Rude cover. This is something called Superman Space Age #1. And there is Superman encountering his suit with the ghost of Jor-El all around him, obviously in the Fortress of Solitude, but what difference does it make? This is Steve Rude artwork. I don't know, you comic book fans might know that name. Non-comic book fans, of course, will not. You might recognize Jack Kirby's name. You won't know Steve Rude. But forever and ever, he drew a great comic book character. One of the only great comic book characters that was not either Marvel or DC, Nexus. Steve Rude was the artist for Nexus forever and ever. And here he is drawing Superman, and a fantastic, evocative Superman cover. And it's a square-bound thing. It cost $10, and it is written by Mark Russell with art by Mike Allred, whose artwork I have loved in many, many different capacities. Ecstatic, Silver Surfer, a great run of the Fantastic Four. He's a little bit odd as a writer. He's a little bit of let me see if I can get you an example here. He's a little bit of a taste that you have to get used to. A little bit stiff, but very good. Once you get used to him, he's very good. And this turns out, at first I thought this was going to be yet another retelling of Superman's origin story. Writers and artists do that all the time. It is a pure sign of how durable a myth it is, that it can be redone so many times with so many variations, and all of them can be good. At first I thought that it would be that, because early on, Clark Kent has never put on a costume. He doesn't know the extent of his own superpowers. He's still getting advice from Ma and Pa Kent. But it turns out that it's a lot more than that. Other characters show up in here. For instance, Hal Jordan is given his ring by a dying Abin Sur. Also, we are taken into the Batcave with Bruce Wayne and Alfred. So obviously we're talking about some sort of origins of DC Comics here. I don't know how long, I don't know anything about this miniseries. I don't know how long it's going to go on. But I can't wait for the next issue. I doubt it'll be next week. But I can't wait to see. I'm going to talk to my guy Adam and make sure, if he can, that I don't miss an issue of this. I don't know how long it'll be. I intend to be a problem customer for him and all of his long-suffering staff. But my two qualifications for being a needy problem customer, needs petting and tending all the time and special feeding. My two qualifications are, one, I'm very friendly. Say what you want about anything else, but I am very friendly. And two, I am not afraid to spend money on the stuff I like. I will definitely be a paying customer. I know that doesn't go very far, but I'm going to have to hope that they're made of stern stuff over at My Newbury Comics. But the one thing, I like this, I really did. All the characters, Lois Lane, Perry White, Lex Luthor, all the characters in here are terrifically done. The one thing I didn't like in here is a sentiment that goes all throughout the book that is totally wrong. Here we have a terrific panel. There's Superman flying away from the Fortress of Solitude. You see what I mean? Allred marches to the beat of his own drummer. Imagine 9 out of 10 comic book artists being told, give us a scene where Superman flies out of the Fortress of Solitude. 9 out of 10 comic book artists would do something that would look relatively the same as the other 9 out of 10. This is, it's a little stiff, it's a little jerky, but it's definitely individual and well done. But the sentiment on this panel is, the people who do the most good in this world are not the strongest, the smartest, or the most prepared, but simply those who show up. That's absolutely not true. And that is clearly designed as a kind of participation trophy. All you have to do is show up to be a hero, 21st century intentional, endless self-validation. That is the kind of thing, all you have to do is show up to be a hero, that you would say to Black Lives Matter protesters or Antifa protesters right before they burn down somebody's small business. That's exactly what you'd say to people like that. Or, oh, they're alt-right counterparts. You'd say, well, all you have to do is be here to be a hero. That is not true. And it's made rather explicit when Hal Jordan gets his power ring from a dying Abin Sur. Abin Sur says, I am dying and there is no time to find a replacement. You must take the ring from which our power flows. And Hal Jordan says, but I'm not worthy. And Abin Sur says, no, you're not, but you are here. That is not true. The ring goes to Hal Jordan because he is worthy. What am I supposed to make of a superhero comic book, especially a Superman comic book, that says that how hard you try and how good a person you are irrelevant? All you have to do is be in the vicinity. I'm hoping that doesn't get stressed in future issues because that bugs me. That is an anti-heroic stance for a comic book to take. But anyway, there was 3 first issues, and they were all terrific. I mean, my ideological differences with Superman Space Age #1 notwithstanding, these were all terrific. So my actual comics at the comic shop were terrific. Plus, I had 2 graphic novels that I'm going to have a whale of a time rereading. So as far as an inaugural trip back to the comic shop, this went really well. And it was only part of a new routine that I think I like. The only problem I foresee with this new routine is that it involves a little bit of walking, as routines do. My old routines did. I ought to just, face facts, take a deep breath, get a grip on myself. It's just, we're in a trough right now here in Boston. We're in relatively normal summer weather. Low 80s Fahrenheit to mid 80s Fahrenheit, relatively low humidity, that sort of thing, during the peak of the day. We came off a 6-day heat wave where it was much worse than that. And we're going into at least another 6-day heat wave next week. I think right after the weekend ends, that onslaught will start. I think next Wednesday is going to be 95 degrees Fahrenheit, and every day after that, as far out as the weather details go, is going to be 95 degrees Fahrenheit. Sure how well this new routine will hold up to schlepping around on hot sidewalks, but we will see. I am definitely not going to quit when I've just started, so I will try again next week. And we'll see. Will there be more issues that I'm interested in addition to whatever I get that's collected? You'll be along for the ride. So I will wrap this up. I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.